do you really think he can make it to the White House with the media running every 5 minutes that he's calling a female reporter on Fox, by the way, saying that she was having her period? That's why she's asking questions? I mean, it's disrespectful to Megyn Kelly. It's disrespectful to female journalists. It's disrespectful to ladies in general.
What Donald Trump said about Megyn Kelly is outrageous. What the rest of the Republicans are saying about all women is also outrageous. Megyn Kelly is a strong woman and more than capable of defending herself against Donald Trump. I'm worried about what Republican policies would do to the rest of America's women.
Well, you know how I feel about feminism. If you forget, check out my YouTube channel. You'll get an earful. But I'm a reasonable woman. I believe there's room for discussion of everything. How else do we solve our political and social problems? We've got to start the conversation. So I'm honored to welcome media commentator and Huffington Post contributor Jennifer Crumpton. Jennifer, great to be with you tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Jennifer, I want to start with, of course, the Megyn Kelly-Donald Trump spat. Now, we've heard all the sound bites by now. We've got the responses from both Kelly and from Trump. But what's your take on the whole thing?
Well, I think that Megyn is a perfect example of how a smart woman in a powerful position can disrupt the status quo. She pointed out sexism. She knew that there would probably be repercussions, but she was courageous enough to go ahead and do it. And this is what my definition of feminism is. It's somebody who is courageous enough and takes the risks it takes to point out problems and sexism in our country because she wants to make a better world for our daughters and for the women coming behind us.
And what do you think, of course, I'm wondering as well, because there's been so much talk about this, so much commentary, especially about that question from Megyn Kelly, and then we know how Donald Trump responded to it. It was very combative back and forth. Now we're seeing the repercussions, and it's a national conversation about that one moment in a very long debate here. So I'm wondering, do you think people are blowing it out of proportion? Do you think it's gone too far?
Well, I think everything's getting a little bit blown out of proportion right now, and we see this a lot in the primary season before the election cycle really gets going. But, you know, I really believe that Trump actually did a favor to women, and especially for feminists, because he really brought out into the mainstream on a presidential primary debate stage, no less, the type of sexism and terrible rhetoric that women are dealing with on a daily basis. If someone will stand up on a national stage and say things like that to a professional woman, we have to wonder what happens behind closed doors every day, on the streets, in schools, in workplaces, behind closed doors. Women are dealing with rhetoric like this and the resulting behavior of it on a regular basis. And so I think he really just proved why we still need feminism today.
I want to talk about the overarching concept of feminism because I think that's where you and I may have a little bit of disagreement here, maybe not. My concept of feminism, when it started, was that it was a push for equal rights. It was a push for women to have the voting rights, to be able to own property, to have equality as far as marriage and contracts were concerned, and a very noble. I mean, what woman would be against that? Obviously, we're for equality. However, I think, especially in the last 10 years, it's very much so shifted to what we're entitled to as a result of being women. So that's where I have a problem with the conversation now, because I see people like Sandra Fluke thinking that what standing up for women means is that, hey, we need our birth control paid for. That's where I see a disconnect, and that's what I have a problem with.
Well, I think I see it differently. I saw Sandra Fluke as somebody who is standing up for women who can't necessarily access or afford birth control. And we all know that access to affordable birth control reduces abortions, and it makes healthy families for men, women, and children. So, you know, I think it's all in the way that you perceive it and approach it. But the fact is that, you know, these are the stats we're looking at, and that's that our Congress is only 20% women. That's not equal representation. Women are 4.6% of CEOs in the S&P 500. They're only 5.2% in the Fortune 500. The United States is actually number 71 in the world, behind countries like Pakistan and China and Rwanda, countries in South America and Africa, in the percentage of women in government. For some reason, the participation is not able to happen here. Things aren't changing. Women are still looked at as secondary. And this is exactly why I wrote the book Femme Evangelical, The Modern Girl's Guide to the Good News, because I really feel like, especially with our generation, Tommy, and yours, because I'm almost 20 years older than you are, you know, we tend to forget how far feminism has taken us. We're living in this world where we do have so many more opportunities. We tend to forget that we're standing on the shoulders of our foremothers and all the women who took all these really courageous risks to get us the ability to be able to learn to read and write, to get the vote, to go to college, to be in the workforce.
Sure. But here's the thing that I have a problem with, Jennifer, first and foremost, is because I don't want to get something, I don't want to be handed something because I'm a woman. I don't want to be handed a government position because I'm a woman. I don't want someone to vote for me or vote for Hillary Clinton or Carly Fiorina because they're women. I want to vote for them because they can say, yeah, I might be a woman, I might have the anatomy of a woman, but I've got my own mind. See, first and foremost, when I wake up every day, besides the time when I'm doing my hair and when I have, my makeup artist do my makeup, I don't think to myself like, I'm a woman today. I think I'm a human being today, and I go out and tackle the world just like anybody else would. So to say, yes, we do have a smaller percentage of women in the workforce or women in CEO positions, I think we've made incredible strides. And I think right now, seeing women, especially like Carly Fiorina that's coming out and saying that I can be a woman, but I'm not talking about Planned Parenthood and abortion first and foremost. What I'm talking about is ISIS and Iran and jobs, and that's what I like to see. And I like to see a lot of strong female voices, not just talking about the typical women's issues.
I totally agree with you, Tommy. And if there's someone who's gotten a position just because they're a woman, I would love to find out who she is, because I don't think it happens very often. I really think the cards are still stacked the opposite way, where women really have to fight very hard. We have to prove ourselves in a way that men don't have to prove ourselves. We have to go above and beyond to be taken seriously. And rhetoric like Trump's shows that that's still the case. I mean, he said women look better on their knees. There's still so much sexual harassment and looking at women as objects who aren't as good at men at things like foreign policy or technology or leadership. And
But Jennifer, I want to tell you this, when I'm confronted with that, because I'll be honest with you, I'm confronted with that as well. I'm 23 years old, I'm blonde, the way that I look, people want to label me all the time and tell me that they don't take me seriously. And you know what that does to me? That brings a drive in me like nothing you've ever seen before. And I'm so proud that I have to confront that every day because it makes me better. So when someone calls me a name, someone disparages me, someone doesn't take me seriously, someone says I look better if you put me on mute and just look at me, I love it when people say that, because then I get to fire right back. And I love seeing that from Megyn Kelly too. She got up and she said, you know what, bull. And people have been confronting me saying that, you know what, you need to take on Megyn Kelly. You should be the next Megyn Kelly. Bull. It doesn't need to be one or the other. There can be many of us with many different voices in the game right now. And you know what, I don't like Hillary Clinton, but I'm glad she's there because she gives me an inspiration and I can speak out against her, and I don't have to label myself an anti-feminist or a hater of women. I think you and I can align on that as well. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day because we're stronger because of it.
It's so true. And, I get people calling me all kinds of names and men saying terrible things and even death threats on Facebook. Just because I sort of stand up for women or talk about things that are going on in the world that affect women. So it's definitely a very prevalent thing that there's a backlash. For you and I, it does make us stronger. For many women, it makes us stronger. But when you spread it out onto a systematic level, where all of our institutions are really sort of glutted with this, it makes it very difficult for us to be the land of the free. And I think the more that we can push, especially for women who may not have the opportunities that you and I have had, especially minority women, we really need to be looking at changing these systems so that this is just not acceptable.
I think the best way to do it, and that's I think where you and I might have different methods, I think the best way to do it is I like to stand up there and say, like, look what I've done at my age and what I look like. Look what I've been able to accomplish. And it's not because I'm a woman. It's because I've worked damn hard to be here. And so that's what I like to do. And I like it when young girls can look at me, even for a moment. I'm not a big celebrity. I'm not a big star. But if one girl can look at me and say, I can do it because I can be fearless, that's what feminism means to me, and I want to get back to that because it's so much more than abortion and birth control. Jennifer, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I really appreciate it. Up next, if you can figure out what motivates people, you can lead. I'll give you some examples in just a moment. Know your enemy, know yourself. I'll be right back.